And that is the ethic of what the Koch brothers and all of their organizations believe in. Freedom for billionaires to get richer, freedom for coal companies to continue polluting our nation, moving us in a disastrous way with regard to climate change, freedom of Wall Street to continue to go about their greedy, illegal ways to disrupt our entire economy. That's their definition of freedom. So to my mind, here's where we are right now. I've touched on a lot of issues, and all of them, without exception, on what, and there are many other issues I didn't even say a word about that are terribly important as well. But where we are in this moment of history is pretty clear to me. And that is whether or not, and it is not easy, and I'm not here to tell you that it happens by snapping your fingers, whether or not we can bring about a political revolution in this country which demands and urges millions and millions of working people, middle-class people, young people, old people who are so disgusted with the political system today, they don't want to vote, they don't want to go near it. They turn off their TV sets when they see the ugly ads. Can we somehow bring them into the political process? And here is the very good news. On every single issue, based on every poll, and I look at these polls that I have seen, what these guys, the Koch brothers and our right-wing Republican friends are talking about, they maybe reflect 10% of the American people, 15% of the American people. You go to conservative states, go to Mississippi, go to Alabama, go to Oklahoma, stand on a street corner and say, do you believe that we should cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid and give tax breaks to billionaires? And they will laugh at you. Nobody believes that. Very few people believe that. And what our job is to understand that there are issues. I'm 100% pro-choice all my life. I believe in gay marriage. Vermont has led the nation on that. But we have to understand the whole differences of opinion, to respect other people's differences of opinion. But our challenge is, can we bring together working families all over this country to stand for an America which makes sure that every single person has at least a modest standard of living, that our kids do well, that we end the international embarrassment of having the highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world.
Really?
That we do well for our seniors. Can we do that? I think we can. So what the challenge is about is whether we move in that direction, bringing tens of millions of people together, getting them involved in the political process, having meetings like this all over America, having debates, having discussions, and expanding and strengthening our democracy. That's the way I think we've got to go. Then there's another way, which the guys at the other end of town are talking about, and that is a handful of billionaires pumping hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into campaigns, having candidates come before them, and getting the litmus test that they will support the billionaire agenda. That's where we are in America. Either a strengthened democracy or an oligarchy, and I vote for democracy. Thank you very much.
I like this guy.
I really liked him. And from college. New Hampshire. And from college. But I've always liked that guy, Bernie Sanders. He says it like it is, he always has. If you don't like crooked Democrats, he don't like crooked anybody.
He's talking straight about us because the whole entire political system disgusts me right now.
Thank you very much for your patience. Okay,
He's always that. He's always a little straight arrow.
We have some questions, I think. I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. If you could give this address to every home in America, I think you'd be elected president.
I don't think he wants to be president, though.
I have a request of you and then a question. Simple request would be, can you do two things? If we could require the television networks in every station and all the cable news who get their licenses from us to give free airtime for 90 days before an election, We wouldn't have to raise billions of dollars.
Right.
The other request is, you talk about jobs, young people on the street corners, college students getting wasted 3 or 4 nights a week. Of course, they don't all, but it happens. How about a youth corps requirement that every 18-year-old American boy and girl, you can't start college at 18. You're going to work for the country for 2 years. You're either going to go into the military, you're going to go to a hospital corps, you're going to go to an Indian reservation, you're going to work in the inner city. Every kid, 2 years, paid by the government, paid by the American people, to work for what is the greatest country in the world, or used to be the greatest country in the world.
When they go into
Two
college,
requests.
Used to be the greatest country in the world. That's so true. All they do is just get fucked up.
Why are the Democrats so passive? Laying down, already almost conceding that we're going to lose the Senate, it's going to be taken over by Mitch McConnell and his right-wing hacks. Why are we letting this happen? You talked about 45,000 dying every year from not being able to afford medical care. That's 3 jumbo jets equivalent crashing every week.
Yep.
If 3 jets or 150 crashed a year, people would stop flying, they'd pay attention. Most American people don't know there are 45,000 dead. Most American people don't know that a guy named Bill McGuire, who ran United Healthcare in Chicago, when he walked out the door, took $1,820 million with him. $1.8 billion is the final payout, private health insurance. People don't know these things. They'd be pissed if they did.
Well, let me answer your question in 2 respects. Here's what my view is what's happening politically. I talked about the Republicans. In Vermont, you may know, that we've had a long, proud history of Republican governors and senators. George Aiken, I don't know if that name means anything. Bob Stafford, Jim Jeffords. We've had moderate Republicans in the Senate, in the House, in government. Those moderate Republicans today could not get into the door of today's right-wing Republican Party. So you see, politically, the Republican Party had been moved from a kind of a center-right party to a right-wing extremist party. What about the Democrats? Well, at the Democratic Party, look at what Harry Truman talked about in 1948. Truman, as you may recall, was considered then to be a conservative Democrat from Missouri. Conservative Democrat. Read what he has to say. There are very few Democrats who will talk in his language today. Democratic Party has moved from a center-left party focused on the American working class to a centrist party, which sadly, and it has to be admitted, anyone who doesn't know it should know it, also receives a lot of trouble and as well. So I agree with you. I mean, believe me, we have caucuses. I'm an independent. I caucus with the Democrats, and I rant and rave on this issue. That the Democrats have got to stand with the working class of this country. They've got, and they've got to have the guts to take on good money. But the other point that I would make, there are more good Democrats out there working really hard than you know. But they don't get into the media terribly often. They're not going to get on ABC, CBS, and NBC talking about the important issues. And that speaks to the first point that the question you made about how we open up media for different points of view. Okay, I think we got a question here.
Thank you. Tim Eccleston, I work for the New Hampshire Department of Education. My responsibility there, even though my question doesn't relate to, is with the National Assessment of Educational Progress, so I'm pretty much in tune with education. But the union leader a couple of weeks ago did a story on an effort that I'm making with introducing an alternative, or if you want to use it as an improvement to the Affordable Care Act. And I've even gone as far as putting up a website. It's www.citizencare.us. And what I've done, it's been about 3 years in the making, but I've worked with Governor Leavitt from Utah. Are you familiar with? Okay. Anyway, I made the effort of talking with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Kelly Ayotte's office, and Custer's office, and discuss the program.
Get on with it.
People can make their comments kind of short.
So here we go. Yeah. Would you be willing to take a serious look at this? If you want to see it as an improvement or an alternative to
Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, citizencare.us. Thank you.
Jesus, this guy's fucking
I
stupid.
don't know that we're going to have time to do all of the,
Talks too damn much.
but
That's
let's
too
move
slow.
on and move on. Could you
Too many fucking
be
calls.
as brief as you can?
Okay. I was so happy to hear your words on the centrality of campaign finance reform, and about your amendment, but even before Citizens United was decided, we were in a mess with campaign finance. And can't we go farther and reverse the Buckley-Vallejo decision and restore the right of the people to limit campaign funding? And also, it's not just corporations to limit the right of wealthy individuals to control elections.
The answer is yes. I mean, that's what
Well,
we're
how? Okay, what will you
That's what public funding of elections is about. I mean, public funding of elections, people say, oh my goodness, tax dollars are being used in elections. Well, I think that makes a lot more sense when we limit the amount that having the billionaires buy elections. And what we're talking about is, I mean, it's hard stuff, we've got to figure it out. How do you create a situation where a serious candidate who has support, not anybody can jump up, can then run an election knowing that he or she has a certain amount of money, enough money to get the word out without having to spend half his or her life raising money?
Yep.
Now, by the way, one of the other dangerous things that the Citizens United decision does, the other side of it is that the good guys have to keep up. And I will tell you, and again, it's no great secret, in Washington, in the House, you have candidates, members of Congress, not worrying about unemployment or education. They're spending half their lives trying to raise money in order to compete. It is a terrible, terrible situation. Okay.
Hi, Rachel Brown of Bushcock. I want to bring up two issues. One issue of the war.
Oh, one.
The war.
Yeah.
What's happening in Ukraine, the fact that the parties that we just put into power in Ukraine are neo-Nazi parties, trade stuff on Bandera, worked with Hitler in the 1940s, carried out genocide. That's the current government of Ukraine. So it's a bigger issue than just Russia is a bad guy, etc. But we're looking at something which is driven actually not by the local conditions there, but by the collapse of the European and U.S. financial system. The fact that the bailout, which began in 2008, has created the conditions where they're now moving to bail in, which is, basically a detonator for the financial system once they start to close down these institutions. And that is really the drive for war. So I would say the way to get this nation off this track is for the impulse of the Democratic Party, who are opposed to a lot of the policies of Obama, to break with Obama. That as long as he is in office, that is actually where the nation is headed, is towards war, and that we need to break with Wall Street as well, which is something I know that you are a proponent of, so could you comment on this thing?
Well, not a great one, I think. But you raised an important issue, and it's one of the many issues I hardly got into it, or foreign policy, issues of war and peace. This is what I will say two things. One of the things, I'm going to extrapolate a little bit just a bit. Our right-wing friends, and they tell us the reason they have to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, because of the deficit. Right? How do we get into this deficit situation? Does anybody remember that when Clinton left office in 2000, this country was running a significant surplus? And the economists then were projecting that surplus would only increase in years to come. So what happened? We went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, I voted against the war in Iraq, and I think history will recall that as the right war. But does anybody here recall that all of those guys were just so anxious to get into that war? Do you remember any discussion about what it would do to the deficit? How do we pay for that? Well, we forgot. Just slipped our mark. We didn't pay for those wars, which would end up costing $3 to $6 trillion. And then we gave huge tax rates to the wealthy and passed the Medicare Part D written by the drug companies and so forth. So I wanted to people, in terms of issues of one thing, the other thing that I would say, again, you forgive me for not responding directly to your question. Military stuff. Everybody agrees. Terrorism is true, in my group, terrorism is true, we need a strong defense. But there is something a little wacky. And the United States is spending almost as much as the entire rest of the world on defense. In France, Germany, they got health care for all people. Their kids get free education, and we pay the military well. Maybe we want to think about that as well. So,
Thank you, Senator, for coming to speak to us. I wonder if you'd care to comment on the natural gas industry and exports.
well, I'll tell you one area that we have been, a lot of people use propane here. Propane gas prices have shot up, very serious problem. And in fact, we wrote to the Department of Commerce asking them to stop the export. Because here you have people in Vermont and New Hampshire seeing a huge increase, and we're exporting our product all over the world. So I would suggest that we take care of people here first before we export.
Yes, my name is Jane Lang from Salem, New Hampshire, and I thank you so much for being here. I'm also a very proud member of the New Hampshire Alliance for Retired Americans and work very strongly to make sure that we don't get those cuts in Social Security. But my question to you is, I am appalled by the fact that we elect our congresspeople and senators to Washington to work for the people, when in fact they spend at least 70% of their time, as you had mentioned, on the phone trying to raise money. What about the people and not just politics?
But here's that is the point that I made a moment ago. I don't know, 70% it varies.
I'm recording.
I gotta tell you, every, the Republicans do it, the Democrats do it. They
Fine.
The officers in Washington to get on the phone.
Putting on
And here's the
YouTube.
problem you have.
Then I'll link it.
Look, if you knew, you were a senator, and you knew that an unlimited amount of money was going to come into the country, what do? What's your natural response? You have to raise money from the fund. And what the Koch brothers and all these guys have made is a very bad situation much worse. We have to stop. And that's why I spent so much time talking about the need of campaign finance reform and overturning Citizens United. And in fact, moving to public funding.
Get your ass out of here now.
It's not just the fact that we have so many 37 ads. If you elect people to do your work, and I got to tell you, in both parties, they are distracted, and it's understandable. Someone who's coming into your state, and you're a senator, and you know they're going to spend $20 million. You know what you'd be doing? You'd be on the phone. And you would not be focusing. Well, then you do. And that's the dilemma. That's why we need to change the system. Okay. All right, this line keeps getting longer and longer. Why don't we do two more for both sides? Okay. Sure.
Hi, Dennis Chalowinski from Dover, disabled veteran also. Quick question of how does the self-serving attitude of Congress get changed to where us as the common folk are heard more than themselves?
Good. Again, I think it gets back to a simple point. You have a Congress right now largely dependent on corporate men. They don't stay up nights worrying about you when they are getting their funding from millionaires and billionaires. Therefore, they worry about that agenda, not your agenda. Let me give you some examples. You're a veteran, yep? Disabled vet? I'm chairman of the Veterans. We have introduced the most comprehensive veteran legislation introduced in 20 years. It will go a long way to deal with many of the very serious problems facing the veteran community. And you know what? Supported by the American Legion, the DAV, the DFW, the Vietnam vets, Iraq, Afghanistan vets, all of the veteran organizations. We brought it to the floor, and it's a whole other thing. Because most of you think, and most Americans think, it takes 51 votes to win. It doesn't. In an unprecedented way, the Republicans have used filibuster after filibuster. Take 60 votes. You know how many Republican votes I got for a bill that would improve life, disabled vets, the veteran board, I got 2. Now I'm working on 3 more. Happy to say, I got every one of the Democratic office. I need 3 more. But to answer your question, what we need, this is what a political, look, it's not easy stuff. But you have got to bring your representatives all over the country in. You've got to have your agenda. What is your agenda? And if they're not voting for your agenda, if they're not supporting your ideas, you tell them, have a nice life, but you're not going to do that. That's what it's about. You've got to be hard. And I don't mean to say it's easy. It's not. But that's what I mean about building a strong grassroots movement that elects the people and holds them accountable. Yes?
Very hi, Russell Vaughn, a disabled veteran from Massachusetts. I'd like to thank you for what you do for the veterans and the Veterans Committee. I know you don't have time, I'll just do two quick things. My daughter at 29 is still paying off her college. There's a lot of chatter on Facebook and whatever with some of these people that want to pay the fine on the Affordable Care Act and don't want health care. Now, she can't file bankruptcy to get out from underneath. I don't think that the people who willingly do not take on health care should be able to file a bankruptcy and get out from underneath and let the rest of us pay for their health care. The other thing that I would just want to say real quickly is I think the minimum wage, I think there should be a two-tier minimum wage. I think if you're going to get a $10 an hour minimum wage for 40-hour week, I think it's worth more to have somebody work for 30 or 20 hours where they have to juggle schedules and things like that, and it would give them less of an incentive to just fill their employee things with minimum wage workers like Walmart does. I think there should be like a $12.50 an hour minimum wage for a part-time worker, $10 for full-time. Now, obviously, exceptions to that, but for a Walmart or a Target or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm John Raby. I'm from New London. I've got two words and a phrase for you, Senator. Soil, water, and endless warfare. In 1981, the Agriculture Department reported that the 6 feet of topsoil that once covered the prairies and the plains was down to 2 feet. That soil is still going into the Gulf of Mexico. We also know that the aquifers in Arizona, California, and under the Great Plains are dropping. They are sinking. This keeps up the present rate. The soil and the water will be tapped out in 2 generations. It will be gone. Now, as to endless warfare, what do we do about the Pentagon's drain on the civilian economy, R&D and job creation, and what do we do for brave young men, among whom is one of my 2 best childhood friends, brave young men and brave young women sent abroad to fight and die for the sake of what I politely call an official story. Thank you. And I have a present for you if you care to read it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, last question right here. Yes. My name is Malcolm Bennett. I would love to see on the ballot the next inheritor of Norman Thomas' program. I think we're entrenched in 19th century thinking about the economy. Nothing seems to improve. It just sits there. And people seem to be satisfied. People have tried to engage in political conversation with panic-stricken. They just don't want to get into it. What is it going to take for somebody on the left?
People are not satisfied, and that's just not true. People are frustrated, people are angry, people may not know how to go forward. And what I have to say, Paul Rove and Coco, they have done an amazingly good job in dividing people up. Among the gun issue and the abortion issue and the gay issue, that's what they do. And what our job is to do exactly the opposite, to bring people together. So. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting the booth here. I'm not sure. No. Let me just conclude. I just want to thank all of you for coming out on this beautiful day. Around here we haven't had that many beautiful days. And what you're doing, I want to thank Excellence for doing it as well. This is what American democracy is supposed to be about. So let's do this all over the country. Let's get millions of people out talking about the real issues facing America. And when we educate and when we organize, we're going to change this country. Thank you so much for being here today.
On behalf of Institute of Politics, we'd like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good job.